Hi, everyone, whoever is listening. Um, my name is Sue, and today with Ruthra, we're going to talk about our involvement in U Report, facilitated by UNICEF, and joint effort with um, a major group of children and youth, a migration group. Um, so today it's going to be a conversation. Just think of it more like a podcast between me and Ruthra. I've never done a podcast myself before, but it's more of an informal kind of chat on reflecting the process of being involved in the U report. That's basically about what's going to happen in the next hour. I shared the link to the actual U report in our event chat channel. So do check it out if you have the chance to. So we'll move on to introducing ourselves, I guess. My name is Sue. Full name is Suyeon, but you can call me Sue, spelled SU without an E. I am a fresh graduate here in Singapore. My day job is not really related to migration at the moment, but working with displaced population is what I've been doing in the past 4 years in college and what I would like to go back to in the near future. Um, my work has mostly been focused on refugee and refugee youth and gender protection in general. And I'm very interested in participation of the people, the concerned people themselves, in coming up with solutions for the problem that they are facing. That's a bit about myself. And Ruthra, if you want to go.
Hi, thank you, Suyeon, for the amazing introduction. And hello, everyone. My name is Ruthra Mary Ramachandran. Thank you so much for giving me and Suyeon the space today to share some of our reflections on the review report and a little bit of introduction about myself. I'm a refugee activist based in Malaysia. I've been working with and for refugees for the past 3.5 years and have engaged with nearly 20 civil societies within the country to carry out fieldwork and consultations to analyze and recommend solutions to prevent some of the problems faced by refugees, especially young refugees, and carrying out initiatives to enhance their livelihood. Currently, I've been serving in the National Working Group of the Human Rights Commission of ASEAN for Malaysia and Asia Pacific thematic focal point in MGCY. I'm also running my own organization known as SAMIA to help refugees across the world to get better opportunities, equal opportunities, and inclusive spaces. And currently, we are functioning in Bangladesh, especially in Cox's Bazar camp, Malaysia, and in Kakuma camp in Africa. So that's all about me. Over to you, Sion.
Thanks, Ruthra. So, as you have might noticed from Ruthra's introduction, she has a lot to share with us about education side of the U report. So we'll get into what this U report really means, but in today's session, we're going to focus on two main themes. First one being education, learning, and the second theme being job and livelihood, earning. So Ruthra will be focusing on learning, education, and me on jobs and livelihood. So how this is going to work is I'm gonna ask some questions to Ruthra, and Ruthra will help me answer those questions. And in the process, you will get to know how we were involved in the U report process. So Ruthra, what
Mhm.
exactly is U report?
So, a U report, or in other words, it is also known as Talent on the Move report, is actually a report that is powered by the voices of almost 8,764 young people around the world and highlights the potential of young migrants, internally displaced, or refugees as change makers, leaders, and innovators. The report offers us a story about the hidden talent, aspirations, and resilience of the migrant communities, especially the refugees. the displaced communities in certain parts of the world. And the report brings in the light on their experience on the transition from learning to earning. So, like I said, I would the report is also shedding some light on the opportunities, strategies, and even barriers faced by migrants, young people, young migrants, and displaced communities in accessing to their education and employment. And yeah, that's what Talent on the Move is, or the U report is about, basically.
Yes, thank you for that. Um, so yeah, indeed, it is about people, young people on the move. And as Ruthra said, in this U report, which is a social media listening tool, more than 8,000 young people participated, and about 3,000 of them self-identify as a migrant, refugee, or an IDP, right? So that's
True.
very important that, yeah, they really disaggregated the data based on their status or self-identified status, and were able to identify the difference between host country young people and young people on the move. And I think that's a very important part of what it was also. So, Rifra, and who are the stakeholders that have been involved in the development of this review report? And what role was MGCY in particular playing?
Um, Thanks for the question, Suyeon. Okay, in regards of the stakeholders who have involved in here, first of all, um, I would like to explain about the role of MGCY played in this whole Talent on the Move report. So the poll questions at first were co-created in partnership with the young people and the Migration Youth and Children platform of the major group for children and youth, along with UNICEF. And like you have said, the poll were actually launched in May 2021, and the poll ran over 4 weeks on 4 independent Europort platforms at global level through the intra-agency UNEDO Voices platform targeting the refugees and migrants living in Venezuela, Ecuador, Brazil, Bolivia, and also through national Europort programs in Iraq, Kenya, Lebanon, and Uganda. And regarding the stakeholders again, the poll actually provides us with a lot of information regarding uh, the education and employability accessibility for young people on the move, and the report enabled the prospects of working together to create personalized and flexible pathways to help young people learn, gain necessary skills, and build resilience to future shocks. So, this has been conducted under the Prospects Partnership, bringing together the Government of Netherlands, IFC, ILO, UNHCR, UNICEF and the World Bank to provide to not just to listen to what the young people have said, but also to provide a unique combination of humanitarian assistance, long-term development support, and private sector solutions to help forcibly displaced persons rebuild their life with a particular focus on youth and women. So, in together to answer your question, so there are a lot of stakeholders who have been involved in this, and the most notable ones are the UNICEF, IFC, ILO, UNHCR, World Bank, and last but not the least, the UNMGCY, who have co-created this call.
Yeah, not last but not the least, thank you for sharing information about the stakeholders. And since we have been involved in the process, in the consultation process of it, we've given advice to the UNICEF leading team on how to improve this U report in the drafting and editing process. What are some of the additional areas of improvement do you think this U report still has, and how could they improve on it?
Um, so, like Suyeon said, we were presented in the consultation session made organized by the UNICEF. where we have been giving in some additional suggestions and yeah, suggestions to improve on the CO report. And regarding the limitations of the U report, first of all, from on my perspective, the respondents are, are not necessarily a representative sample of migrants and displaced youth based on their demographies, and the poll respondents are only a select group of people because unlike many others, they have access to internet or mobile phone for at least basic digital skills. So the U report, I would say, may not be able to capture the overall picture, overall voice of migrants and displaced communities, especially in the most vulnerable regions. So there might be a lacking on that, and complementary research approaches to target those without connectivity and efforts to bridge this digital divide are needed if we want to attain a more comprehensive picture of the aspirations and challenges for youth on the move, especially those who are in the most vulnerable parts of the region.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. I think that was one of the limitations that was also acknowledged in the U report, that it is a very limited sample of youth that they were able to hear from, given all the restrictions in terms of access to online platforms. But I think what they could have really done is at least to get the geographical representation um, right. As in, the 95% of the sample come from MENA region and Africa continent, and only a few, the less than 5% of the sample are from South America, and we can hardly find any answers from the Asia APAC region, especially. And given the region that we represent, I think that is one thing that your report could have done better, or they can start working more on to have better representation. I think there's a skewed representation because the partners that they engage were based in MENA and African region instead of APAC region. So I think one thing MGCY can contribute or future versions of report is by connecting them to the right partners in the region so that they can expand their sample in APEC region as well. So that was like one small thing that I wished they could have done better. So yeah, despite all these limitations, this report still provides um, quite illuminating insights into what youth want, what barriers they face, and what are some strategies they have come up with to overcome those barriers, right, Ruthra?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Mhm,
So I would like to briefly highlight on the barriers faced by young migrants and
mhm,
displaced communities in accessing to both education and employment. So according to the report, it was stated that 70% of youth on the move considered money to be their biggest obstacle to learning, especially. And children and youth on the move who are living in camps or informal settlement, they might be in immigration detention or unaccompanied, separate from their families. They are the often ones hardest to reach with accurate information in a language that they understand. So that also been shown in the report. Almost 32% of the migrants and displaced youth says that lack of information about available learning opportunities and resources are also one of the key barriers for them to accessing to education and employment. And moreover, at the moment we are all having, we are all in midst of the pandemic, and COVID-19 actually compounded many existing barriers, with millions of these young people forced out of school and and are at risk of never returning. 18% of the youth on the move pointed to the role the pandemic has played in limiting their accessibility to learning opportunities. And imagine on the overall, only 3% of the migrants and displaced youths who have responded to this EU report poll felt that they have no obstacles accessing to this learning opportunities. And this report, when we listen to the stories and the data statistics given in the report, it has confirmed the simple truth that for many, talent is universal, opportunity is not. So the findings of the report has also led us to reimagine the incentives given to these young people on the move to help them to overcome the barriers that is associated with their continued learning or employability opportunity. Like we have said, the report has also highlighted some of the strategies and resources youth can access to overcome these barriers. And we haven't shared the link of the PDF, I mean, your report PDF here. Maybe we can share it later on. And if you have seen in the PDF of this Talent on the Move report, in the last pages, you'll find several lists of resources that's available for young migrants, youth on the move, uh, to access for their education and employment informations, and most importantly, opportunities were were set in place for them. So these are the resources were given in the Talent on the Move report. And as far as the strategies are concerned, the report has also highlighted several strategies that would help the migrants, the youth on the move, the host government, or even the native government, the native country, to provide better accessibility for youths in the region to have to have better accessibility to education and employment. So, in terms of education, there are several strategies that have been highlighted. The first one is government, donors, and business must acknowledge young people on the move as assets and rights holder rather than problems or threats to help harness their innovation, creativity, and energy. Secondly, host governments and donors and employers need to join forces to tackle the biggest barriers to education and removing that includes removing financial barriers and leveraging the technology to provide incentive for continued learning and self growth. And also we have to be the report has highlighted that most of this youth on the move, they have prior access to education, maybe primary education or the early beginning of secondary education. But what is the real problem is they have, in their process of fleeing away from their country or migrating from their country of origin to a country of to the host countries, they have actually missed almost 3 to 5 years in average of education. And but they still hold some kind of skills and capabilities within themselves, and validations towards this skills and capabilities that they hold need to be improved. So they have recommended the solutions like learning passports or yoma, where young people can actually verify their digital CV can be leveraged to achieve this to overcome these barriers. And last but not least, the report has also highlighted that young people should be provided with more relevant and targeted information on available education and employment resources. And more effort is needed to close the digital divide, to improve connectivity and fair access to digitally empowered education, especially for including migrant and refugee hosting schools and communities. So these are several barriers and strategies that were mentioned in the youth report in regards to the education of the youth on the move.
Thanks, Ruthra, for such a thorough run over what the U report has to offer for us. Since you mentioned some of the strategies, both on the youth themselves and also from the other stakeholders, including governments, private sector, or NGOs, um, could you mention one or two examples that were mentioned in the U report as youth initiative or there in the launch event itself there was a mayor from Portugal who spoke about his own city, right? Could you mention one or two examples of how these strategies are working in real life?
Definitely. So the question is about the strategies that how these strategies were implemented in practical, in real life. Am I right?
Exactly. The review report has a lot to offer in terms of the examples or the
Exactly.
organizations and the spotlight individuals on how they are overcoming these barriers, right? So,
True.
yeah, if you can talk a little bit about that. That would be great.
Definitely. So, for example, one of the highlighted solutions discussed during the launch agenda of the SEER report was the Learning Passport. And a Learning Passport is actually supported by UNICEF, and it is an e-learning platform developed and implemented in partnership with Microsoft. And this Learning Passport is actually available in 10 countries. And it is a platform that how do I say? It is providing a lot of functions for the refugees, for the youths on the move to actually take up curriculums, digital curriculum on a self-paced basis, and most importantly, in their own national languages. So the children can have accessibility to to enroll in classrooms, digital classrooms, which teach them on their national curriculum itself. And every time when they have finished one module, it is actually recorded in the passport, learning passport, and that will evaluate their journey of education, and that will provide li- uh, uh, acknowledged certification on the skills and knowledge obtained by the refugees. So in that case, the UNICEF is trying to tackle the lack of schools, the lack of human resources, and also the lack of accessibilities among young people on the move to have accessibilities to local schools or to enroll in local schools to get the education that they want. And the most important part is they are getting an acknowledged certification at the end of their schooling term, which will help them to pursue further their education for the high school or the tertiary level. And also, there is a platform which was also discussed. It is known as Global Skill Partnership. It is also a promising model that envisages a bilateral agreement between the country of origin and country of destination, in which young potential migrants are given training in their home countries on TVET, soft skills, non-formal education, and work readiness. So a lot of countries, especially Australia, is one of the main supporters of this program, and it grants qualification recognized uniformly across the region and focus on skills that are needed in both origin and destination countries. And to add on to that, we have also a micro mentor that supports young entrepreneurs across the world with global reach that includes young people in low income countries. So I think in terms of those entrepreneurship fuel aspects, I think Suyeon can actually describes that more in details in the upcoming discussions. But yeah, these are several examples, and there are a lot more. These are just two of the examples which actually strikes to me a lot, but there are a lot more that we can find in the U report.
Mhm. Indeed, agreed. There are a lot of examples that are mentioned in the year report, as Ruthra has said, and I totally agree. Documentation is like the key to the smooth transition between one education level to the next one, and also from education to employment. And that was emphasized again and again in the report. And also, I this is something that I really feel like I really think we should work more towards. And then it's something that definitely requires partnership among various stakeholders, including governments, and a push from the ground. So yeah, and since you mentioned the digital curriculum on the passport thing, um, reflecting on COVID, although COVID did exacerbate a lot of difficulties that these youth on the move were facing already. But one silver lining is that it has somehow normalized the digital learning for everyone, including us and people on the move. So hopefully, this development on this digital educational platform will be able to help youth on the move to access these educational opportunities as well. Okay, I think since Ruthra has mentioned about job and livelihood and employment, we can move on to the second part of our discussion. Ruthra, would you like to take over?
Sure. So, thank you, Suyeon, for moderating it so well for the first session. And I'm going to take over the second session where we'll be focusing on to the entrepreneurship side of for the young people on the move, which has discussed in a deeper level during the launch agenda of this U report and also in the U report itself. So, in terms of entrepreneurship, Soyon, what do you think that the youth really want, and what are their aspirations to actually nurture their to nurture themselves to become financially empowered and independent?
Mm-hmm. Thanks for the question. So, one of the questions that this year report focuses on is what the youth want. And I think that question was asked to inform better decision making, better policy making, and is something that your report aims to go over than just the mere consultation, but really getting the right data and information from the people who will be affected by the decisions made um, on the UN or government level and so on. So the question was like, what do the youth want, especially the ones who responded to the U report poll? Um, well, a lot of people have mentioned that getting professional skills and getting a job is a basic need in order to earn an income. This is something that we all can agree on, right? But another thing, especially for youth on the move, employment is key to creating purpose and a meaningful life for them in order to um, realize what they want their life, how their life they want to be, or how they want to lead their life, especially given the circumstances and the difficulties that they had to overcome in order to access these opportunities. So, when asked what kind of training you want, a lot of people the most represented answer was professional skills. They would like to learn professional skills such as marketing or law or things that they can right away transition into a job. And the second most represented answer was language skills. And third was technical skills, including digital literacy. So, what I see in those three answers is that these are skills that are all pivotal to become a well integrated member of the society. And it is youth on the move themselves who are aware of the need more than anyone else. So, yeah, that those are some of the skills that they would like to learn in order to create purpose and a meaningful life. Yeah.
Wonderful. And I totally agree with what you have said just now, Sion. You have highlighted how the young migrants or the youth on the move acknowledge the availability of a platform to enable them to actually get financial independence, and how they are, how much they are wanting to have a professional background in order to help them to get the financial backgrounds that they wanted to have, the independence, financial independence that they want to have. And you have seen about these skills that they wanted to learn, the marketing skills, the business skills, which will help them to improve on their professional level. So, what are the obstacles that you are, that the youths who have responded to this poll, what are the obstacles that they are facing in terms of acquiring all these aspirations that they wanted to have?
Yeah. I mean, surprisingly, but also not surprisingly enough, the obstacles that they face in the employment section a sector is same as in the obstacles they face in the education stage. So it's mostly lack of available jobs, which is similar to not having access to educational opportunities in the first place, and also limited information, which comes from the language barrier or having to find the right resources to tap onto. And lastly, another layer that adds on in the employment phase is discrimination and documentation. Documentation discrimination is something that kicks in even more on the employment stage because the lack of documentation leads to discrimination and also the lack of protection of their labor rights. So those are some of the obstacles that Youth on the Move has identified. And like Ruthra, the how Ruthra has mentioned in the education part of it, your report talks about a lot of strategies um, that youth themselves have come up with in order to overcome these barriers. And since Ruthra has talked a lot about what happened on the government level and on the international community level, um, I would like to talk a bit about some examples that are happening on the ground, initiated by Youth on the Move themselves. So one of the example is called Association for Integration of Women. It's a nonprofit organization based in Italy, and then it's initiated by youth, displaced youth, and they provides training programs and community building activities, and it is a digital platform, um, also helping the participants learn how to use these digital skills in order to get have access to education and employment. So is not only the stakeholders who are in the top policy decision making level who are trying to make a difference, but more importantly, the participant themselves, I mean, the youth themselves on the ground who are making a difference as well. And I just wanted to highlight that these strategies are coming from them as well. So, yeah.
Wonderful, Suyeon. Actually, you have like, answered the questions which I really wanted to ask you about the strategies, but you have covered it really well. And I really like the way that you have narrated how youths on the move themselves are actually doing a lot of things to have this financial to enhance the financial opportunities independence within their community itself. And one great example was given, which is in terms of Italy. And do you remember any other examples within given in the report in terms of providing more employability or other strategies or recommendations given in the report in terms of increasing the employabilities of young people on the move?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, the strategy that they mentioned work very similar to the education one. As in term when it comes to strategy, they did not differentiate between education and employment. So in terms of supporting the documentation of youth on the move and giving them right resources of support that they can tap onto, those were similar strategies that were mentioned. But I think another thing that is a slightly different from the structural side of the solution is there was an initiative called Refu Poet, which is creating art to provide emotional support to each other and kind of express using their story to create art and share the sentiments. And yeah, it really focuses on the mental health and solidarity side of things rather than the structural side of barriers. So I think it was very good to see youth on the move themselves identifying these problems that are not necessarily visible on the structural policy level and try to address that through various means, including arts. So yeah, that's one of the examples that I would like to add on top of all the great strategies that you mentioned when you're talking about education.
Wonderful, Suyon. And whenever we are, discussing about this, one thing that we shouldn't be forget. I mean, we shouldn't forget is the role cities have played in terms of getting this employability opportunities or education opportunities reaching to the youths on the move who are taking refuge in the cities. So cities has become the role of cities has become something really integral in this whole process, and the Europort has also mentioned about this. So do you have anything to add on in terms of this?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think especially when it comes to employment issue, the real report and a lot of discussion when it comes to employment of people, displaced people, the role of cities has been very emphasized in the recent years, and I think it is because when it comes to city unit instead of a country, which involves border and status and documentation and legal um, legal whether they're able to legally stay in the country or not. When it comes down to city, first of all, the mayor or the decision making, the so to say, the mayor or the government cares about its residents despite of their status. So a lot of people identify that as something that we can uh, kind of build on, the rhetoric that residents matter regardless of their status. And second of all, cities do matter because people on the move, especially youth on the move to cities because that's where the opportunities are. That's where opportunities for education and employment are. And so we're seeing more and more youth on the move being concentrated in the cities. And if we have the right tools to welcome them in the city from the beginning, then they would be able to help facilitate the process, either in educational or employment related integration process. So that's I think those are the two reasons why we should really focus on city level solutions rather than too macro like country level or government or international level solutions. So that's my personal reflection. But if anyone would like to add, please feel free to.
I have something to add on. As we have been discussing about all the barriers, strategies, and also initiatives at a very regional, international, or government level. And just now, Suram was mentioning some initiative that has been happening on the ground level. What are the things that need to be emphasized on a level on a city level? So I would like to also highlight that something that is also missing out in this whole Q report is how the traditional methods has been used to provide this education and employment opportunities. There are a lot of things that's been happening on a very traditional basis where the migrants helping another migrant, or the civil societies helping migrants, or the local village level leaders who are helping the migrants living in their villages, their neighborhoods, helping the migrants within their community or residence. So all those traditional methods that have been happening, apart from the digital aspects or the policy aspects, those are something that also needs to be highlighted within the report itself, something that I have reflected through my opinion. And also, like Suyeon has mentioned, that the report has not really grasped well on the situations or on the perspective of young migrants from the region that we belongs to, the Asia Pacific region, and most specifically the Southeast Asia or region, I would say. So I think there is this gap where our network can come into to offer more consultations, more inputs on getting how we are progressing through this. And even last year, we have made this GCM report. In this aspects, we have consulted so many organizations, grassroots organizations, youth organizations, civil societies, on how they are leveraging on this opportunities aspects to provide education and skill building for the migrants in their respective countries. I think this would be something that will be bringing in a lot more inputs to the ongoing process of this talent on the move report as well. So there are some inputs on my side as well uh, to enhance the comprehensiveness of this new report.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Thanks for sharing the reflection. It is a great report, as in it's a great initiative what it tries to achieve, but there are definitely areas of improvement, and I I think the topic itself, like talent and youth, like why does it matter, right? Why do we have to talk about it? I think, I mean, I'm sure everyone on this network is aware of that. That's why they're on this youth network on migration, right? But I think it really sheds light onto what we need to focus on, looking into our future. It's a very future oriented topic because um, we can't talk about future without focusing on youth and focusing on youth oriented problems. I mean solutions. I think is um, really working in a long term solution, looking working for the long term solution instead of trying to find out short term remedies for the problem that we're facing, and also the issue of when it comes to the issue of talent, we've had this dichotomy in migration studies and discourse between high skill versus low skill migrants. And I'm kind of quoting what I have heard in the launch event. I think Martha um, I forgot where her organization was, but then
Oh, Martha from UNG, UNM, sorry, Martha from MGC, what?
no, it's not that Marta, but another Marta. I mean, MGCI Marta is great, but there's also another Marta who was in the launch event, and then she mentioned how
Mm-hmm.
has there's this ancient dichotomy between high skilled migrants and low skilled migrants when it comes to migration discourse, and we've seen the past year when we were hit by COVID that there's when we talk about talent, there's really no high skill versus low skill. We've seen how much we are in need of essential workers, and um, everyone plays a vital role to make the society function, right? Um, and being able to overcome the dichotomy of low skill and high skill, and seeing what youth on the move have to offer for host countries, I think that is very important, and that's what this U report has to offer as well. As you said, one of the recommendation they have is to see these youth on the move as asset instead of burden, right? And as much as it sounds like a cliche, but I think that's really the gist of what this report is trying to say and the change in discourse that it's trying to make. So yeah, that's my bit of reflection towards the end.
Totally agree with you, Suyeon. And especially the way that you have mentioned that how important talent, I mean, how important it is to provide more efforts, to put in more efforts to enhance the talents within the youth on the move. And likewise, you said that you are saying that how we should focus more in the long-term opportunities, um, compared to the short-term opportunity. I mean, short-term interventions, yeah, solutions that we have to be, we are providing for this youth on the move. So and also you kind of gave a, a very thorough explanation on the gist of this new report on how they are trying to change the discourse and providing an equal access to education and employability to all of the migrants, disregard of where they belong and what kind of qualifications that they are holding. So that's something that really needs to be highlighted. We have to keep saying it every time until we stop saying it. So when we stop saying it, it means it has we have done it. We have achieved the target. So until then, we have to keep saying this again and again and again, so that we'll somehow get to the solutions that we wanted to achieve. And talking about the solution, I just want to add on the last note on my side. Um, Myself, we have the EU report has inspired me personally so much. So we are currently conducting a one of we are trying to replicate the inputs given by the EU report and trying to experiment whether is it really going to work on, and we are trying to provide an education opportunity based on the recommendations given by the EU report to the refugees children living in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh. So we have our audience here. I would like to request our audience. We are trying to work on this model, and we really need your help in terms of providing us, of helping us out to provide with some um, extra human resource, extra skills and contribution, especially in terms of we are looking for teachers who would be able to teach our students on a IGCSE's curriculum. So I just wanted to add on that if the audience here who are willing to contribute and collaborate with us, kindly message me, and my email address is samiaorganization@gmail.com. That's where we communicate on in regarding the interventions that we are doing uh, for the education accessibility for the refugee children in Cox's Bazar. So yeah, kindly message me if you're interested to collaborate with us. That's all, Suyeon. I just took this opportunity to share some of share one of the initiatives that we are working based on the U report. So thank you so much.
Yeah, it's great to see that you're following up with the U report and with your own initiative. So everyone, if you're interested, please reach out to Ruthra. If you can leave your email, Ruthra, in the event chat, I think that would make it easier for people to reach out to you. And to kind of wrap up, I had a question to the floor is since we mentioned multiple times that one of the limitation of this review report is the lack of representation from the APAC region, if you have any organization that comes into your mind who support or work with youth on the move, um, on their education and their transition from education to employment, please kindly let us know so that we can link them up with the U Report team from UNICEF, so that we can have better input from this region to this great tool that's already in place. Thank you, everyone.